Okay, for the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 8, Class 8 on May 26, 2025. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They're gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiating from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try to help fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. Deep down, we know this is possible. Learning about emptiness and karma, we glimpse how it's possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that strong intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know. what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please, please teach us that. And they're so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kalnirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community. Through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest, may all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every single other. Okay, so the essence of last class was those hell realms are projections ripening from results of past unkindness to others. Current life ends. A karma projects Bardo headed in the direction of the next circumstances of that lifetime shifts again into that horrible experience. So we avoid it by taking and keeping vowed morality. You know, a long story, of course. But the bottom line is His Holiness, the Dalai Lama always says, just be kind. Just be kind in body, speech, and mind. Also easier said than done in certain circumstances, and that's the practice, right? If it were easy, we'd all be enlightened by now, and maybe you are, I can't tell, but I'm not yet. So Geshe-la said, class 7 was so heavy, let's do an easy class on class 8, and I don't find it to be the least bit easy. Or very much more reassuring than class 7. And then we get to 9 and 10, and they're a little better, but they're all about dying. So it's like, gads. So we'll carry on here. So this class is about time. Abhidharma Kosha is describing all existing things. Chapter 3 in particular is discussing like the details of physical existence from the teeniest atoms to the vastest universes. And included in that description is time and space. And we would expect that explanation to go into quantum physics, and it probably does. If you knew quantum physics, you would probably see it in the Abhidharma Kosha chapter. But in its description of time, it talks about the discussion is related to the question, how long does it take to reach Buddhahood once you have your first genuine bodhicitta, the wish to reach total enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, whatever that means, to first reach that state of mind. How long from that time forward? Like until that happens, you know, not even a Buddha can say how long it will be before Sarani makes that transformation. But once that bodhicitta is in place, whatever that means, then from Sutra 3 times 10 to the 60th, countless great eons is how long it takes. And it's like, okay, how long is that? And that starts this discussion, trying to describe this concept of an eon. In Tibetan, it's kalpa, the term kalpa. Yeah. So in science, they use the term eon and era, and it's a time frame. It's not a set number of rotations of the Earth around the sun. I looked it up. An eon is considered 2 or more eras, and an era is a period of time marked by certain distinctive characteristics. So, you know, in geology, we have the, I don't know, Pleistocene era, and then other eras, and they call it that era because certain circumstances were in place on the earth at that time, but they don't say, you know, from this year to that year, because you can't say that, obviously. So in Buddhism, a kalpa is equally like not a number of years, but a period of time within which certain events happen. And so a given kalpa, for instance, could be, you know, this long one time and then this long another time, because it took longer for those changes to occur in these things that are happening in repeating cycles. So a kalpa, you know, they say it's an indefinitely long time. Well, if it's an indefinitely long time, why use the term at all? Because, you know, to say, oh, 3 kalpas, that should be from here to here, 3 kalpas, so that you know where you are when you're in the middle of it. But it's not like that. The way you know where you are is by the circumstances that are going on. So there are many kinds of kalpas, but there are 4 main kinds. Here are the 4. Jikpe kalpa, Chakpe kalpa, Nyepe kalpa, and then what's called the Kalchen. Jigpe Kalpa is called the Eon of Destruction. Chakpe Kalpa is the Eon of Formation. Nyepe Kalpa is the Eon of Continuation. And I'll get to Kalchen later. So the Eon of Destruction. So this is describing the cycles of worldly existence. The Eon of Destruction is a period of time that's marked by 4 things happening at the same time. So for this eon to have been started, these 4 karmic events are happening. One of them, so you can't say 1, 2, 3, 4, like first, second, third, fourth, because they're all there. They've all occurred. And that makes the beginning of the Eon of Destruction. So one of them is that no more beings are taking birth in the Avicii hell related to that planet. So our planet has its own stack of hell realms. And there are beings, both beings from our world and presumably beings from other places, would be taking birth in that Avicii hell related to our Earth. But no more beings will take birth in that Avicii hell if the world that has that Avicii hell related to it is not going to last long enough for the beings to finish their time in Avicii hell in that Avicii hell. You know, this is just so difficult to wrap my mind around. It's like, why in the world is this part of the projection? I just have to leave that on the show. So there are other worlds, 1,000 of 1,000 of 1,000 planets. Remember Diamond Cutter Sutra? There are other worlds that have beings that are desire realm beings, some of which are human. Whether they look like this, I don't know. And that world has Avicii hells also. So if, for instance, someone dies in a world where the being, where the cycle is such that there's not enough time for that being to finish their time in the Avicii hell of that world, their karmic bardo time will take them to the Avicii hell of another world. So, right, they need that bardo time to get there somehow. Anyway, so at what is part of the characteristic of the beginning of an eon of destruction is the fact that no more beings are showing up in the Avicii hell of this world. Yeah, right, see? Because it's telling you the eon of destruction is started, there's not enough time left for them to finish. Second factor that establishes the eon of destruction is the people living on that planet, their lifetimes have degenerated down to 80,000 years. Wait a minute. Degenerated down to 80,000 years. That means they were longer than that. That's pretty inconceivable. Third factor, the eon of continuation, which is the one that was before, ends. And fourth factor, the eon of destruction opens. It's like those 3 establish the opening. of the eon of destruction. So once this world is in its eon of destruction, then as animals and craving spirits in that world are dying, let me take this back. As beings are dying in that world whose karmic projection would send them to an animal realm or craving spirit realm, their bardo takes them to the animal or spirit craving spirit realm of another planet. So those on the planet in the eon of destruction are going to see fewer animals in their world. Like they'll be seeing extinction happening. Fewer animals, fewer species. If we were aware of craving spirits, we'd be aware of fewer of them as well. As time goes on, the humans of that planet are reaching deeper and deeper stages of meditation, such that when those lives end, their projecting karma sends them into the first level of the form realm related to that planet. So there are even fewer and fewer humans on that planet over time. They say that the first person reaches that level of meditation, and before they die, it's so pleasurable that they teach other people and they catch on. And so more and more people are spending more and more time withdrawing their sense perceptions from the desire of their world and making the seeds to be free of awareness of a coarse world. And if one of those seeds pops at the end of their life, it can push them into the first level of the form realm, where form is exquisitely beautiful. But then it's too nice to be interested in where things come from. Okay, so they say slowly, slowly, the desire realm is emptying out of the world that's in its eon of destruction. And eventually, that world empties completely of living kind, because its related living kind is now in its form realm. And then, let me see. So this process of all the beings leaving that planet and no new ones being born there, because the planet doesn't have enough time for them to carry on. It's called a barcal, like BP, barcal, which means intermediate eon. So within the eon of destruction, there are these intermediate eons, barcals. And there are 19 it takes 19 intermediate eons for this process of beings who have come to this earth. No, that's not right. For this place that has beings, to empty out of all of its beings, of its desire realm. I think I have that right. Then there's a 20th intermediate eon. The beings related to this planet are all gone. But the planet itself still goes through a 20th intermediate eon period of time where the sun is going to supernova. And apparently the description in Abhidharma Kosha sounds like a scientifically based science fiction movie where the sun splits in two, and so because of the additional heat, the rain stops, all the vegetation dries up, two suns are rising in the sky every day, all the rivers dry up, the streams dry up, the smaller lakes dry up. There's millions and millions of years that this is taking to happen. Then there's a third sun shows up, and everything gets hotter and drier, and then a fourth, and then a fifth. By the time there's 6 suns, the 4 continents and Mount Meru have burned up like in a puff of smoke. And then a 7th sun, happens, and the whole physical world burns up to the first level of the form realm. And at that point, when that whole physical world is just disappeared, that closes its eon of destruction. Duh, right? There's nothing left. It's been destroyed. So it has no more eon of destruction. How long did that take? However long that took is how long that eon of destruction is. You see, it's really hard to wrap my mind around it. From this period of time where these 4 factors were present to the period of time where all of this has happened and there's no more physical world, that's the eon of destruction. And there's 20 intermediate eons through which that takes place. Then, yes, Chris.
I think in the reading, it said that at one point that the high pleasure beings stopped sending the rain. And I'm like, I thought they just sat around eating bonbons.
Yeah, they do.
Is there any, do you get that part?
Yeah, I know. I don't understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I don't didn't miss them.
Yeah. I do believe I understand that there are beings who are, I don't know how to describe, let's say whose job it is to manage the water, like this other traditions would say the spirits of the water element, right? They're in charge of water. Water belongs to them. Earth belongs to earth spirits, right? And
Okay.
like something like that. But to be a water spirit, it's a big, powerful job. It would be a result of great goodness. And so I think something like that, a different take on what it would be to be a pleasure being. Right. Okay. So the ENF formation is this eon time period during which a planet and its beings are coming into being. It is also said to be 20 intermediate eons long. And in that first intermediate eon, the circumstances that start the eon of formation is that an energy starts to swirl. So our minds want to say, you know, first there's this, and then something happens that makes this happen, and then something happens to make that happen. And the description does sound like that, but they leave out the, well, what was there already? And why did that start to turn, right? Those questions aren't answered so much here. So we would want to say that there's a space where no planet is, and then something stirs. An energy starts to swirl. And as it swirls, right, it's swirling in that place, a disk forms. And it continues to swirl. Faster, bigger, with a frequency that makes things harden. It's like if a wind spins hard enough, it'll solidify. And I don't know that physics proves that or not, but this spinning disk solidifies. And if you've taken the description of the 37 pile mandala practice, it talks about that in detail. Like how big and thick is that first diamond ground, and then it gets the gold, and then it gets the water, and then it gets, right? So this disk forms, and then still spinning, mountain ranges form, oceans form. The physical basis of the planet is taking shape. At some point, Bardo beings from some other place that doesn't have enough time for them to complete their cycles, right, are attracted somehow to this newly formed planet. So these first beings are, they say take birth there, but they would be showing up. They'd be showing up miraculously. Right? Do you see where we're learning all these terms? They're showing up complete on this new planet. And they themselves don't really have solid bodies yet. They are beings who radiate their own light. This world doesn't have a sun and a moon yet. They can fly. They're very gentle. To them, all the planet is edible. So when they're hungry, they just, you know, scrape the earth with whatever, you know, their hand does with light. They, you know, they're not humans like us, but they're living beings. And then as time goes on, those beings' selfishness grows. And as their selfishness grows, their bodies change, get more solid. Their desire for food, for sights and sounds and smells and tastes and touches and pleasures increase. In this period of time from the first beings, as this degeneration is happening, it's still called the eon of formation. Their lifespans, those beings' lifespans, are called Seimei. Seimei means an not measurable time. But not measurable time doesn't mean, not at all. Not measurable is a term they use for a certain period of time that's really, really long. And Geshe said he tried to follow the description of it, and he got to 10 to the 30th exponential. And he said he got confused past that. So somehow it's their lifespans, these first humans, are more than 10 to the 30th years. 10 to the 30th means a year, right? With 30 zeros after it that long. Like we don't have even a name for it. Abhidharma Kosha calls it immeasurable. Long time. But as those beings get more and more selfish, their individual next lifespans shorten. And then as a group, the lifespans of the humans is shortening from immeasurable down to 80,000. And the period it takes, right, for those lifespans to go from immeasurable to 80,000 is this first intermediate eon of the eon of formation. Right, so the world has formed, but these beings aren't like this yet because of, a thing like this doesn't live 80,000 years. So they're still more subtle than these. So the eon is still forming in the sense of forming up into the world as we know it. I mean, to me, it sounds like the eon of formation is still destroying, right? Because we were closer to pure when we first got here. I mean, I don't mean me, but the beings, I don't know. This is all really hard for me. All right, so eon of formation starts with that first swirl that's going to become the planet. And then all this other stuff happens through the course of these 20 intermediate eons. And the eon of formation closes when the first being from that planet dies, and their projecting karma pushes them into the Avicii hell, the lowest hell, related to that planet. So in all this time of this newly formed planet, there's nobody in its hell realm, at least in its least hell realm. And that planet is fully formed when the first being dies and has done a deed or deeds, the karma of which becomes the projecting karma that throws them directly into the lowest hell, which could possibly have been one of the 5 immediate misdeeds or multiple lesser bad deeds, right? That one of which was the one that pops to go to the Avicii hell. So by the time the first being lands in that planet's Avicii hell, those lifespans have dropped down to the 80,000 years. So when beings are only living 80,000 years, we know that the formation, the eon of formation of that world is finished. And the next eon opens, which is the Nyepe Kalpa. Nyepe Kalpa means the eon of continuation. Eon of continuation also has 20 intermediate eons that make it up. It starts at the point where the lifespans of the beings is 80,000 years, which means the Avicii hell is filling up. And during this eon of continuation, the people are doing more and more non-virtue, right? Their selfishness is growing. And so their behavior choices are being more and more willing to hurt others to get what they want. And so they are doing more and more things like killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, useless speech, jealousy, ill will, and wrong view. And as a result of those non-virtues, their lifespans are shortening. And over time, their lifespans will fall from the 80,000 years down to 10. So a planet's beings, humans we're talking about, will someday, the average lifespan will be 10 years old. And that's like when it's at its worst degeneration. In the eon of continuation, the planet's continuing, the beings are getting more and more non-virtuous, so their lifespans are shortening. So there's this cycle. At the eon of formation, the first beings, their lifespans are like 10 to more than 10 to the 30th. And then their selfishness drives them to their lifespan of only 80,000 years. Eon of continuation starts. Now lifespans are dropping down, 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 down to 10. One can imagine like if we think of what we know about human history, and those cycles of great civilizations that have, right, evolved, flourished, gotten greedy, destroyed other civilizations in their greed, and then themselves collapsed, and how we've done that over and over and over again with seemingly greater or lesser cruelty. And here we are doing it again. It's like the period of time in human history that we apparently know about, all of that is in the period of time where human lifespans are around 100. So, you know, there are times when the average lifespan was 40 years. And then, I don't know, the Bible seems to talk about Moses having lived, 500 years. But from our human perspective, the the whole period of time that we know about, humans have been in this time frame called the 100, meaning you could average 40 up to 190, right? They say 100, we're at the 100 level, and it's kind of an important distinction to be at the 100 level. But one can see that the reason our lifespans would be shortening is because karmically we're being more and more selfish and cruel to others. So our lifespans are shortening as a group and as individuals as well. So, if we have enough goodness to get human again, which I don't quite see how human can get another human and another human for this to really make sense. But as a species, humans, as they get more and more cruel as a species, their lifespans get shorter and shorter, which means by the time we're down to only living an average of 10 years, which would mean half the people die earlier than 10 years, half the people die older than 10 years, but not much older. The cruelty has gotten so strong that they're cruel to each other, and they were cruel to each other to make them have such short lifespans. So they say what's happening is that in this dropping lifespan, the beings have been creating terrible weapons of destruction to fight with each other, and that finally, in this period of time when average lifespans is 10 years old, some people are out on picnics, they're out of the cities. Just about everybody lives in a city, and the weapons are unleashed, and all these cities are destroyed. And the people that were out on picnics, they get home to find everything destroyed, and they're distraught, and they go wandering around, crazed, and bump into people who were picnicking, on the other side of the city, who are equally, egads, what's happened. And because of the horrendous destruction, and because of the relief at finding some few other beings still alive, people's love and compassion just explodes, and their morality increases, and they live kindly, and they share stuff, and they help each other, and they build this more loving, compassionate world. And slowly lifespans start to increase again. And the more virtue that's done, the longer the lifespans are, and they rise and rise and rise and rise back up to 80,000 again. At the 80,000 level, people's virtues are great. Life is easy. Life is good. But somehow selfishness starts in. I don't know. My guess would be more and more people. It's getting crowdeder and crowdeder. And so although lifespans are long because virtue is strong, it's not ignorant. And so as resources somehow get less available because there's more beings, selfishness kicks in again. And the cycle starts again with growing selfishness, growing non-harmful behavior to get what we want and need. Lifespans dropping, and down it goes again, to the point of another version of that destruction. And then a few people don't get destroyed, and oh my gosh, let's not ever do this again, let's love each other, right? And it goes again. And so there are these cycles of a new planet forming, beings from somewhere, show up there with these long lifespans. They get selfish, lifespans drop to 80,000. They get more selfish, lifespans drop to 10. By down at 10, they destroy each other. Vit comes back up again. The cycle. Eon of continuation. The cycle happens. The first one from immeasurable lives to 80,000 down to 10 is down to 10 is the first intermediate eon. Then 10 up to 80,000, something like this, down and back up is the next one. And then the next one, and then the next one in these cycles from 80,000 to 10 to 80,000. The time it takes for that to happen is another intermediate eon. The eon of continuation takes 20 of those. 19, 80 to 10 to 80, and 2 on either end, 80 to 10 to 80, and 1 on the end. Right? So the point is a really long time. But technically, whatever time it takes for this cycle, 80,000, 10 to 80,000 to happen 19 times. Because at the end of the 20th, something else is going to happen. I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be so long. It depends. Long time. At its end is one of the characteristics of the start of the eon of destruction, right? That's where we started. The 4 things that have occurred that start the eon of destruction. One of them is that the eon of continuation ends. Because the cycle has happened the 20 necessary times. Why 20? I don't know. Okay. So then there's also this thing called the Kalchen. Kalchen is the term for a great eon, Chen, great eon. A great eon is the period of time it takes for 80 intermediate eons to happen. But it's not clear which 80 intermediate eons they're talking about. Because we just said that there's the eon of formation for a new place. And there's 20 intermediate eons in the eon of formation of this new place. And then we said there were 20 intermediate eons in that place's eon of continuation. And then we said there's 20 intermediate eons in its era of, or eon of destruction. That's only 60. And where's the other 20 that makes up the 80 intermediate eons that would characterize this thing called a Kalchen? And why are we talking about Kalchen anyway? Kongli shared, or did I dream this? Kongli shared that in the Chinese tradition, they offer that there's a intermediate eon in between the eon of destruction and the next eon of formation. like a time when there's nothing existing at all, before the first swirl starts. And maybe that's what it is. The Abhidharma Kosha does not describe that. Like a 20 intermediate eon period of time when there's nothing happening, because the period of time is established by certain things happening. So you wouldn't be able to, right? You could never establish how long that 20 intermediate eons would be, because there's like nothing there. There can't be nothing. But it makes sense. Maybe there's 20, time period when there's nothing happening. Anyway, Kalchen, we don't know. Geshe Michael says, I don't know where this other 20 intermediate eons comes to make up the 80 intermediate eons. But the important piece is the great eon is significant because when someone says, how long does it take to become a Buddha? The answer is, it takes 3 times 10 to the 60th great eons to become a Buddha, to gather sufficient virtue, to purify and make enough virtue to become a Buddha from the moment you get your bodhicitta. So it's not just 10 to the 3 times 10 to the 60th eons. It's great eons. A great eon is 80 of these cycles. The time it takes for an existing world to go through this cycle, up to down, lifespans up to down, up to down, up to down. Get it? Long time. Long time, but much less, not like so much sun around the earth time. The time it takes for these changes to happen in the minds of beings. The time it takes. Yes, Roxana.
Thank you, Julam. I'm trying to figure out who calculated all this.
Good question.
I mean, it's such a big number. Who did the math for us to be learning this and trying to figure out? At least I'm having trouble figuring out in my mind.
An omniscient being. An omniscient being taught this to beings whose minds were vast enough that they could grasp and remember, sufficient to be able to write it down in a way that explains what they heard the Buddha teach. So Abhidharma Kosha was not taught by Buddha. It was written or somehow compiled from all the teachings of the Buddha by Master Vasubandhu. So, how he sat down to access all the different sutras that Buddha taught to be able to write that, I can't conceive. He didn't have a computer.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah, but still, I mean, back then and right now, with computers and with everything,
We still
it's,
couldn't do it. Yeah.
it is, at least in my mind, that's my karma.
No,
Trying
mine too.
to figure out, it's because I can measure from here through here, have an
I know.
idea, but using these numbers, it's like such a
Yeah.
wide range of, I
Yeah.
don't know how I could space numbers or what, I don't know how to explain.
Yeah. Yeah, my mind too is still trying to go, how long is that? And I'm just, as I hear myself talk about it, it's like, it's really describing the circumstances of behavior change of the beings on the planet and how long it takes for us to work out, right? To work through our belief systems, right? It's the shifting experiences more than the time that we're talking here. But then it shows us that in order for those shifts to be made, it takes a lot of work, a lot of experiences, a lot of 65 per instant, seeds out, seeds in, to make the change that we're wanting to make. I find this class as discouraging as the Hell Realm class. You know, it's no fun class, Geshe Michael. It just sounds like it's going to be impossible to make this change that we're saying. Yes, Chris.
So is it that period of time for like the Buddha, as in Shakyamuni Buddha, who's going to lead everybody else, or is it to become an enlightened being?
It is to become an enlightened being.
It takes that much time. Yeah, that's discouraging.
From sutra practice. Yeah. Yeah. Don't give up. Don't give up. The punchline helps.
Yeah, but if it's 2,600 years for Buddha Shakyamuni until he got enlightened, until for us right now, right? So if I think back before Buddha Shakyamuni, I mean, Siddhartha Gautama was born.
Right.
That means that a lot of, I don't know, a lot of transformation of all the kalpas had already passed in his world.
Right. Right.
And we're just 2,600 years away from that. Comparing his transformation
Right.
to perfect enlightened being
Right.
to where we stand right now.
Right. Blip, like he might as well have been here yesterday, right?
Right. Yeah, but
Yeah, that's
considering
encouraging in a way, right?
it is, but
Makes it
considering
a
that
little
he
more
was just 2,600 years ago, we can be him also, right?
Yeah. I mean, we can be as close as that too.
Right. Yes.
Could be. Yes. Yes.
There's
So,
Kang. You can ask her, dear Lama.
excuse me?
There's Kang Lee. You can ask her what you were asking about the time frame. Remember the intermediate period?
Oh, about the other 20 kalpas?
Yes.
Was that you, Kongli, that showed us the Chinese version of the kalpas? Maybe that wasn't you.
Which one, teacher?
Of the intermediate kalpa. We were looking for the other 20,000 kalpas that makes up a great eon, and you showed us a picture in Chinese that said that other
Oh, no.
20,000 was emptiness, was blank. Was that you?
No, actually the one is the earth, the Mount Meru, and then the continents surrounding. So it's just a diagram because actually previously I really cannot imagine because it said like 3,000 da, 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 I
Okay.
cannot imagine, and then finally I have a picture, and then from there I mean, I got something, but I still don't know whether it's correct or not correct until I attend this class. And then actually it's from the Buddha itself, and then, oh, okay, this one definitely must be true. But I
Okay,
still
I see.
imagine, yeah, I still cannot imagine. So,
Okay.
but the time frame, I still have no information about it.
Okay. I
Yeah,
misinterpreted.
yeah, correct.
Good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. So let's take our break, shall we? Pause. All right, so we've learned that a Kalchen, a great eon, is the period of time of 80 of those intermediate eons. The intermediate eons are these periods of time within the eons of formation, eon of continuation, eon of destruction, and where the other 20 are, we're not quite sure. But the reason it comes up is that the scripture says, De Zhang Mei Tsum La Tsange, in response to how long does it take to become a Buddha? So the answer is this day means that, meaning the Kalchen. Zhang Mei Tsum La Sange. Sange is word for Buddha. Zhang Mei Tsum is three countless that's, right? Three countless Kalchens. Sange, after three countless Kalchens, Buddha. So meaning, how long does it take to become a Buddha? It takes the virtue, the merit and wisdom accumulated for three countless great eons to transform oneself from suffering being to fully enlightened being. The word countless is like that same word immeasurable. It doesn't mean uncountable. It means a specific number. Like we call million, billion, trillion. They have, I don't know them, but countless and immeasurable. So countless, the term countless, zhangmei, means 10 to the 60th power. Sorry, 1 times 10 to the 60th power. So 1 with 60 zeros behind it, right? So 1 with 3 zeros is 1,000. 4 zeros, 10,000. You get it? 5 zeros, 100,000. 60 zeros. It's beyond a word in English that I know of. So that many great eons, not years. 3 of those. It's beyond comprehension how long it takes to gather the merit and wisdom. Maybe we should say it's beyond comprehension how much merit and wisdom we will accumulate to transform ourselves, sutra method, from suffering being to fully enlightened being. That's what our Buddha demonstrated, apparently. I don't know, that's a complicated story.
Dear Lama,
Yes.
you just said sutra method. So if there's a tantra method, does the numbers change or are they the same?
You know, it would make a great debate because the promise of Tantra is that if practiced well, you make your transformation in this lifetime. But then the debate would be, did you get your first bodhicitta in this lifetime and reach your total enlightenment in this lifetime? Or is this lifetime, with the ripening of Tantra's availability and successful practice, the end result of your 3 times 10 to the 60th countless eons of collecting merit? In which case, yeah, it still took you that long. You're just there, right? You're finishing it in this lifetime. I think it's a great way to think of it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I was just thinking 2,600 years for Buddha Shakyamuni, we can be in his shoes right now.
Could be.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. But
Yes.
it's very hopeful and
Good.
encouraging to think it that way.
Yes. Better to think of it that way than
Yes.
to think, oh my gosh, I might as well give up
Right.
because it's
Right.
just too long.
Because I
You
was
know?
thinking, how would Nagarjuna approach this?
Yeah.
How would he encourage me to think of it differently?
Right, right. And we should think of it that way differently, in the sense of, yes, it's all empty of self-existence and so my projection, but then my mind automatically goes, oh, so it doesn't really take that long, right? Wrong conclusion. Because it's all my projection, it is true that it can take that long. Like, that's how subtle my selfish ignorance is and how hard it is to overcome it, because it's empty.
In my mind goes, there's a big possibility.
Yes, at any moment it could shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, dear Lama.
Yeah. Okay, so you have a homework question. How long does it take to become a Buddha? A Buddha occurs from the accumulation of merit and wisdom for 3 countless great eons, and 3 countless is the number for 3 times 10 to the 60th. 60. Sometimes the answer key says 10 times 10 to the 59th. Right? Do you see the difference? It's a math thing. 1 times 10 to the 60th is 10 times 10 to the 59th. So, all right. So in all that time, what we are gathering is that root of virtue, right? The root of virtue, that is that virtue necessary to color our karmic seeds such that our seeds ripen our experience of our own mind as omniscient, right? A being made of love, compassion, wisdom. Okay. So the text goes on to say, well, then, in this pattern of the cycling of lifespans due to the growing and lessening amount of kindness in the minds of beings, when do Buddhas show up in a given world? When does the teacher show up to help people? Because they're not there all the time. Or are they? But people can't see them there all the time. And so what is it about beings' minds that they can finally see a Buddha walking amongst them, or then can't see a Buddha walking amongst them. So this text goes into that, explaining those circumstances as well. So there's another kind of kalpa, another eon, another period of time called the kalpa sangpo. Kalpa sangpo, sangpo means good fortune, eon of good fortune. And it isn't quite clear to me where in this cycle of formation, continuation, destruction, this eon of good fortune is exactly. But it would again be characterized by certain circumstances. It must be somewhere between an era of continuation, but before destruction, or maybe it's sometime in the era of destruction when beings are suffering enough, but not anyway. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure where it lands. So there is this time called an era of good fortune, which they say we are in one now, which feels sort of contradictory. So this was Master Vasubandhu 350 AD saying, even then, we are in an era of good fortune. And it's like, well, a lot of awful has happened during that time or since that time. But nonetheless, they say we are in an era of good fortune because we are still within the period of time in which 1,000 Buddhas are to appear to our world. So this earth world is supposed to get 1,000 Buddhas. Shakyamuni Buddha was the third to appear on this world. First to do it from a human form, first to manifest doing it from a human form. So if he was the third, and we're not seeing the fourth walking amongst us yet necessarily, and there's supposed to be 1,000 before this world gets destroyed, we've got some time left. Right? And it's during this period of good fortune that those 1,000 can come. And it's like, well, are they going to come one by one? Are they going to come all at once? I don't know. But we are in that period of time when a Buddha could show up. Like just maybe a little bit more tweaking is necessary. So I need to draw something. Well, let me do it. Let me do it this way. So I can see what I'm doing and then I'll show it to you. Okay, so in these cycles of lifespans, where people's selfishness has gotten maxed out, so their lifespans are down, average lifespan is down around 10, and they destroy everything, and then some find each other and they start to get kinder and their lifespans start to increase. They reach that 80,000 average lifespan, and then their selfishness grows again and they start to drop. And as things are getting worse and beings' behavior is getting more selfish, they reach down here where average lifespan is around 100. And then it's going to go on to down to 10, the destruction will happen again and it'll come up again. So as I said, we're somewhere in here, probably on this side of 100.
Could you
In
stop
that-
sharing your screen so we could see the, I mean,
What?
if you stop sharing the vocabulary, we could see you in the whole thing.
Thank you. Stop share the vocabulary.
But there you go. Thank you.
Is that good enough? Do you want me to
That's
pin me
perfect,
big?
yeah.
Okay,
Then we got it.
thanks. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay, so we go from 10, we get kinder, goes up, we get selfisher, it comes back down again. Right, so when we're down here at around 100, circumstances are such that a Buddha will show up to us somewhere in this period of time. They don't show up when our kindness is occurring to us ourselves, because egads, look what we've done. And they don't appear when things are so great that our lifespans are long. And they don't appear when things are dropping until they've dropped enough, but not so much. Do you see? It takes very specific quality of the hearts of the beings on the planet at that time for a Buddha to show up. Remember, we are from Abhidharma school point of view, where all of these things have their reality. Yes, they rely on their causes and their conditions to happen, and they are real. Right? We're not in highest worldview. This is all my projection, but in the end, it comes out the same. Okay, so Buddhas will only come out of our projections when we have a certain amount of suffering and a certain amount of goodness happening. And the reason for that, can I put my board down? You get the idea. It's on the fall.
Yeah.
It's not on the rise that Buddhists show up. Okay. The beings that can produce the ability to see a Buddha walking amongst them need to have sufficient goodness and sufficient suffering to be questioning. So it takes suffering to wonder, why do I exist? Where do things come from? Why me? When things are going well, we don't wonder, why did I win the lottery? Right? But when our house burns down, why did that happen to me? So, but also when terrible things are happening and we are in fear of our lives or our people's lives, we don't have this time and space to wonder about why me, right? We don't really get into that existential crisis when we are in survival mode. Survival mode takes over. So when our lifespans are really low, we're in survival mode. But even beings in the era of the 100 can still be ripening their own personal karma of being in survival mode. They're not interested in their spiritual life. It takes this certain specific enough time, enough needs met, enough intellect, enough education, enough, right? Remember the leisures and fortunes to have the circumstances to have a Buddha appear in the world. So yes, their compassion and their emanations are appearing all the time. But I don't know, to be noticed, to be seen by a group of people, to say, oh my gosh, right? This being is fully enlightened, right? This being is the one. It takes right? It takes the karma, the goodness of the beings who are seeing them to see them. You know, like Jesus, not everybody saw Jesus as somebody special. Some saw him as enemy number one, you know? So saying, it's not like Buddhas are waiting in paradise. Okay, now I can go. It's that the quality of the hearts of the beings of the world, right? Make them show up when they show up. And that only happens when the degeneration is worsening, but it hasn't gotten so bad that everybody's in survival mode. And so apparently we are in that now, and have been since 550 BC, when that first group of people recognized Siddhartha as Buddha. And we still have this circumstance where the next one could be recognized at any moment, right? Lord Maitreya, waiting in the wings, so to speak. You know, she's not. But then they say, oh, 500 years. Lord Maitreya will show up in 500 years, but they've been saying that since Buddha left. Oh, not to worry. Shakyamuni or Maitreya will be here in 500 years. Well, it's 2,500 years later. Have we seen him? I don't know. There's another tradition that says Jesus was Lord Maitreya, and he just came a little prematurely and only got to stay for a short while. Different. That's not ACI. Don't write that down in your homework. Don't even put it in your notes. But, right, it's, again, when we understand from highest worldview, okay, you know, maybe Maitreya is here now. And maybe we're not so far away. And maybe it isn't that they come one by one. Maybe there'll be more than one if we've got 1,000 to go. Anyway. So the text goes on to say that there are signs that we can look for that indicate where we are in the era of destruction, in the degeneration of our world. And there are 5. Let me go back here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. These last 5 words. Say, Nyomong, Semchen, De, and Dawa are these 5 factors that show us the level of degeneration. So the first one, say, means life. And what it means here is that life is fragile. in the time of degeneration, as lifespans are decreasing because our virtue is decreasing, our selfishness is increasing, we will see that lives become more and more fragile. So if we live 80,000 years, right? If we have bodies that live 80,000 years, those bodies must be pretty indestructible. To live only 100 years-ish means our bodies have become fragile. Diseases, more diseases. There are more diseases. Our bodies get easily weak. It's easy for us to die. Like, life is fragile. We're going to talk about it more. Second factor, nyomong. Nyomong means those kleshas, mental afflictions, negative emotions, negative states of mind. Any thought that disturbs our peace of mind is called a nyomong. And then they list the main ones, desire, aversion, hatred, fear, pride, jealousy, doubt, greed, wrong view, right? Thinking pure things are impure. No, impure things are pure. Here it's talking about the underlying factor of being uninterested in doing virtue. Like the circumstance that shows increasing degeneration is that beings have little interest in, going out of their way to be kind. Less and less interest in helping somebody who needs help. Less and less interest in extending yourself to other people in need. Less and less interest in trying to be kind. Just, allowing yourself to say or do whatever you want. This one, the nyomong, is reflected in the behavior of non-ordained people. So non-ordained people are uninterested in virtue. Ordained people still are interested in virtue. Third factor is semchen. Semchen, we know that word as suffering being, living being. But here they're using it in terms of our physical bodies. In the time of degeneration, our physical bodies are not strong, they're not well proportioned. So it's a little different than, say, the life. This is saying specifically our physical bodies are less and less serviceable tools. So apparently when our lifespans are longer, the bodies that we have are these like really efficient, well-proportioned machines that are reliable and capable. Like, I like to use the idea of someone who's a natural athlete. They can just make their body do anything. They see somebody do something, they can just go, okay, I can do that. Versus, somebody with a body like mine, it's got a low center of gravity. I can't move it like that. It gets weak. It's too short. It's too this, it's too that. Right. And then in our world, and like what I see people, more and more people like built sort of knock-kneed or, with the truncal obesity that makes it moving difficult. It's just our physical bodies are manifesting our karmic seeds of this degenerate times where they just aren't like the machines they're supposed to be. Not that they're supposed to be, that our goodness would make them be a body that you could use for anything. So we are in degenerate times, bodies are losing that factor. Not that you were born that way and you lose it through life, but meaning the bodies we take on for life are not as efficient, effective machinery. Fourth one is time. But here it doesn't mean time as in ticking of the clock. Here it is a code for the things that we require to live. And it means here that the things that we require are themselves losing their efficacy to keep us alive, to contribute to keeping us alive. So for instance, our food is losing its nutrition somehow. Not just that we're choosing to eat non-nutritious foods, but that the grown foods have fewer minerals, fewer vitamins, fewer such and such. I mean, science says that. I don't see how a plant can grow an ear of corn that's lacking the amount of magnesium it's supposed to have and still grow an ear of corn. But apparently that kind of stuff is happening. Our food is less nutritious. It's, full of pesticides. You know the story. So it's all part of this manifestation of the degeneration of our world. Our water is not pure. Our foods don't sustain us. Vitamins, minerals, medicines don't work as well. Shelters are not reliable. Even the weather, right, is becoming seemingly harsher than before. So even if we can get those resources, they don't function as well for us. And then it will go on to scarcity, not even being able to get sufficient of those things we need to survive. That's the factor. And then Dawa is the worldview. And here it refers to reaching the point where even people who take ordination take it for the wrong reason and are not demonstrating an increased virtue factor in their life. And so when things degenerate such that even ordained people are not keeping vowed morality, like the degenerate times are really full on. So as these 5 degenerations grow and spread, lifespans continue to decrease. They are why the lifespans decrease, because the resultant behaviors that we do from these circumstances are more selfishly driven. And that lowers our lifespan. And it goes on to the point where there's no one interested in spiritual life at all. So then the first thing that happens is that even when there's a period of time where some people are searching for answers and trying to gain the realizations that their spiritual tradition teaches about, they're interested, they study, they try, but they can't gain the realizations. They can't reach that deep level of meditation. They can't get it, right? It gets harder and harder to have those realizations of renunciation, right? Of the need for study, of seeing dependent origination directly, of seeing emptiness directly, going on to the ones that will come further. And as we can't get realizations, we get less and less interested in even trying. I mean, that's obvious. And as we get less interested in trying, we get less interested in studying and reading and going to lectures. So fewer get offered, and the books get relegated to the libraries. And when they haven't been checked out for a long time, they get relegated to the basement. And once they're down in the basement of the library, nobody remembers they're even there. And then pretty soon the library gets destroyed, and then all the books with them. And right, we're deeply into the period of degeneration. And we eventually reach that point where people's selfishness has grown to the point where they're willing to kill each other to get what they want. And the killing happens, and a few don't get killed, and oh my gosh, look what we've done. And it starts over again, right? With the virtue growing, but virtue really meaning the kindness growing, because the wisdom hasn't kicked in yet, right? When the wisdom, meaning the understanding of none of this is anything other than results of behavior, right? We can understand about kindness is important without understanding wisdom. We'll keep going in the cycle until our understanding of why the cycle is happening the way it is grows. That's what finally will cut this whole cycle, of course, is to understand, oh my gosh, none of it has any nature. It's all driven by how I imprint my mind by what I think, say, and do towards others. And so, oh my gosh, I see how my behavior creates my circumstances. Not in the next moment, but not in the next moment, but ultimately, not meaning ultimately a long time ago, but meaning now. My karmic seeds are making my world now. And now and now and now. And how I respond to it will make the circumstances of some future now. And that makes this whole cycle happen. So it's not that this cycle isn't happening at all when we understand about wisdom. When we have the wisdom, we understand why the cycle happens, because we didn't have wisdom. That we believed that my me and your you were at odds instead of co-created. So where does that leave us? It does seem to me like we are dangerously close to this destroy everything. No, I mean, if we don't do it with climate, we'll do it with bombs. It seems so close to me. But we are at the level of 100. So it could mean that at any moment, we see a fully enlightened being show up. And guide beings in their growth of wisdom. But even then, if what is taught is sutra, it's like from what the scripture says, the sutra method of purify and make merit just takes so long, and so much suffering will happen during that time period while we horse around with purifying all my negative seeds in that negative consciousness. It takes a long time, it seems, which is why our Buddha Shakyamuni, taught Tantra. It's like, it's not why, it's like there's a certain amount of goodness that the beings of our planet have, that Tantra was taught, that Diamond Way was taught. Not everybody has the seeds to see that Tantra was taught, or to see that Tantra is something that is meant to increase the amount of virtue in the world. They see it as something that's like mistaken and wrong.
I'm confused, dear Lama. Why is something mistaken?
Why is something mistaken?
Yes. Why you said that there's people who see it like if it's as being taught as something mistaken. That's what I
Oh,
understand.
Tantra? Right,
Yes.
because, okay, so some people might hear about Tantra practices and they think it's some perverted sexual practice,
Oh,
which it's not. And then some know a little bit more about it and they think it's just these really, really long prayers and lots of mantras that you do. So it distracts you from life, right? You go on retreat, you just avoid everything. And it's like, that's not going to change everything for anybody. And maybe others think, oh, Tantra is all about those solitary retreats. And you just go out by yourself, right? And, you just eventually disappear. Like, that's not it either. When we are well trained, we understand the process of the Diamond Way is a very specific love and compassion centered on others method for transforming all experience from ordinary to pure in a very swift way. And it revolves around keeping our vowed morality to a much more moment to moment extent than our sutra practice did. And it becomes this tool for making this transformation happen like moment by moment, right? To be able to access that space where it could happen in this moment, right? Which is there in every moment, this empty nature of you, me, and the interaction between. So in the tantric vows are additional behaviors that we train ourselves in. It's not behaviors so much, it's a different state of mind that we're trying to learn to train ourselves in.
so that's why you and Venerable Sumati and Geshe-la are so, I mean, interested in all of us to have the right mindset, right? To able to start that and to really learn all this.
Right.
To avoid all those misunderstandings that you would just mention them.
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you. Thank you,
Because
Jen.
if we go into a Diamond Way practice with that state of mind that is still steeped in things have their own nature. Even the enlightened beings, right? Our mind would be, even those enlightened beings have their own nature. That we can pretend to do Tantra and it's not going to have the effect on our mind. And then if we're still at the level where when we hear, no, it's nothing but your own projection, and our mind flops into the, oh, well, then it's not really real. I can make anything up. Tantra, like you hear the tantric instructions and it sounds like it's saying, do anything you want. Right? And if you're thinking, oh, okay, I can do anything I want, and we still have that old mindset, then our selfishness will take over. And we'll say, see, I'm a great tantrika. A huge, huge mistake. And so, you know, someone who's going to be willing to take someone into that path, they're right. They need themselves to see the other as ready to walk that middle line, because the mind is going to go, no, it is self-existent. No, it's not existent at all. So I can, all tantric students flop between that. And if we don't have the capacity to pull ourselves back to the middle road, then our tantric practice will take us off half-cocked, you know, so easily. So we need that solid grounding to be able to check our own mind. Who am I blaming? And am I saying, well, then it doesn't matter? And to get back in the middle way. So yes, you know, my teachers said, make sure that you yourself have the ability to get yourself back on the middle way before you go further in Tantra. And then they're saying, and if you're going to take somebody into Tantra, you make sure you've done everything you can to give them the foundation that they need to keep pulling themselves back to the middle way. And so, like, if that's my role, is to take somebody into Diamond Way, like I anticipate that's going to be what I get to do for them, then when they ask their questions, when they write their homeworks, I'm looking to see the words that they use to try to check how might they be misunderstanding their own words. I don't know your minds, right? Probably your minds know exactly, you know, this wisdom better than me. But my job is to say, do you mean this or do you mean that? Right? So that every time we do that together, we both pull back to being on that middle way. We need to be in that space of the no self nature of anything as what's real for Tantra to work. And it takes this struggle with our foundational practices to go through the process that we need to show ourselves that we can do that we can keep pulling ourselves into the middle. And that's what shows that we're ready for Diamond Way. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, dear Lama.
So how do we prepare for it? We study the Lamrim, right? Meaning the ACI courses. And now this other method, right? Coming to you by Geshe Michael. Put what you learn into practice on your daily life. Just try. None of us do it perfectly. Meditate regularly, seriously. You know, move yourself through those levels. And serve. Help people. Help others. Doesn't have to be human people. Help others. Serve your Lama. To help others is to serve your Lama. There's a big dove outside my door. Serve your parents if you have them. Serve the needy. Serve your Dharma center. Choose powerful karmic objects. I'll give you a hint. See anybody you serve as a powerful karmic object. That's Tantra. I mean, Geshe shared that in the very first 5 houses program. Those beings, they're not ordinary, they're not ordinary. So why not pretend they're a Buddha emanation yelling at you? Because how would you respond to a Buddha emanation yelling at you differently than the jerk boss yelling at you? Hopefully differently. Hey, what is it that I need to learn here? You know, I'm sorry you're upset with me. How can I help you? Like more genuinely than just making it up because Shakyamuni Buddhist or Shanti Deva suggested we do it. Yeah. Okay. So once we are well prepared, our own karmic seeds will force somebody to give us that initiation, to grant us the initiation through which we receive these additional vowed behaviors that are the guidelines for the behaviors that bring about this transformation in a swifter way than the previous vows that we've taken. But the previous vows that we've taken have, by keeping them, we've grown the goodness to be able to receive and sustain the vowed behaviors that come next. So keeping our pratimoksha and bodhisattva behaviors well is what will create the circumstances for a swifter practice, which is granted by way of the initiations, etc. Okay. Geshe ended this class of telling the story of, there was a group of people that Ken Rinpoche was preparing to give initiation to. And one of those students asked Rinpoche, you know, you're going to give us these vows and you know we won't be able to keep them. It's like, why does the system, even with this really careful preparation, go on to give us vows that you know we can't keep? Tantric vows are very difficult to actually keep. And Geshe-la's story said that Rinpoche, with a very straight face, answered by saying, look, you're going to hell anyway. When you get to hell, you'll be able to say, I'm not here because of all the ordinary ways you get to hell. I'm here because I couldn't keep my tantric vows well. And it sounds like a joke. And Geshe-la's point was, Rinpoche was not joking. There's something to be said about that. To go to hell because we couldn't keep our tantric vows. Means that it's still beneficial for us to get our tantric vows and try. I don't understand it myself quite, except that maybe what you're going to do as your hell realm being is going to be a whole lot different. And so maybe that's not a bad thing. All right. So that was supposed to be an uplifting class. The next ones will be a little better, I hope.
It
But
was
remember
very
that.
uplifting.
Yeah.
It was a very uplifting, dear Lama.
Wow, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Because in conclusion, you know, we have to continue trying and trying to keep
Exactly.
our virtue and our morality.
Right.
So,
And
at
that we
least-
are in the perfect circumstances,
right,
right? We're in the era of the
right,
100.
right. So
Like-
it is very uplifting. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Good. So remember that being that we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. You may or may not ever teach them a class like this. That's fine. But what we've learned, we will use to help them stop their suffering forever someday. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy beings. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you and inspire you and support you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person, to share with everyone you love, to share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with happiness, filled with loving kindness, filled with wisdom. And may it be so. Okay, thank you all again for the opportunity to share.
Thank you, teacher. Thank you